Welcome to the People's Revolution podcast. This is a space where we share stories from activists around the world. We hope that these stories inspire you to act locally as we share globally.
I don't have a problem with you. This generation, look around, there's nothing left to do. Liberation, take one final step and then you'll see the complications. System don't belong to you or me.
Welcome to the People's Revolution podcast. We're going to start today, as always, with a land acknowledgement. A recognition that we are on stolen land is not enough when the genocide we call history still continues today and is reinforced by the daily lives of those unaware. Residential schools only closed their last doors in 1997, but the mentality of the residential schools lived on. White people, imagine living in a place that not only normalizes genocide, but actively covers it up. We don't live here because a peaceful treaty was signed. We live here because the white people before us brutally pushed their way in. This includes our current government, RCMP, and church, and we need to acknowledge this and the harmful systems it brought with it before we can even attempt to create reconciliation. It is a privilege to not know that you're living in such a way that makes a genocidal reality seem like regular everyday life. I would still like to recognize that the stolen land I'm speaking from is rightfully the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Nations and was forced to be the home of Treaty 7. These nations are Siksika, Kainai, and Piikani. In these spaces, the Siksikaitsisippi people lived and practiced their oral traditions as far back as existence goes. Treaty 7 was signed on September 22, 1877 in a brutally unethical way. This treaty was not upheld. Treaty 7 includes the Tsuut'ina Nations, the Stoney Nakoda Nations, and the Métis Nation of Region 3. So, in short, this space, known as Calgary, is actually rightfully known as Mohkinstsis. Thank you. So today we have Anthony and Minna, a pact between strangers, music that makes you uncomfortable. I love that. And I love it. How are you guys?
Good, you?
Pretty good.
I'm all right. Let's just dive right in. Music that makes you uncomfortable. Why?
Honestly, I feel like music that makes you comfortable, that's familiar and that's very standard, can be a bit, not always, but it can be dull. Like, what do you think?
I mean, if you're comfortable, you tend to stay in the same space, right? Like,
Yeah.
If you get comfortable in a house, you're going to eventually just want to stay there forever and not move on. Uncomfortable music allows for people to explore parts of maybe themselves or parts of sounds or just parts of the world that make them uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
And through uncomfort, you find discoveries about yourself and the people around you and the world that you live in.
True. When you stop forcing yourself to be comfortable with something, you open yourself up to what you may not recognize as something you'd be interested in. For example, like the music we make. That's one of the main objectives of it, was always that it wasn't the same as everything else, but it wasn't meant to be like, oh, we're cool, we're different. It was meant to be, this is what it is, and what you make of it is what it is. What you make of it is what you make of it.
Mm. Yeah, so an artistic interpretation of sound?
Yeah, pretty much. It's meant to, a lot of our songs focus around the core value of being able to close your eyes and feel the song and feel the space that it occupies, rather than just listening to a song that's about something. It's more rather making it a more personal and experience, it's something you experience rather than just listen to. It's I don't know.
You use more, when you listen to something, you're using one sense, but the thing with the music that we create is it's less about just hearing it and more so about feeling it, right?
It's less about that stimulation more as it is about letting yourself fall into something new.
That makes sense. Yeah, because when your cat's just so determined to be
Yeah.
No, don't be sorry. You're very welcome in this podcast. You're very cute. So when did music first start to come into your lives?
I feel like that's different for both of us.
Yeah.
I know music started coming to my life when I was well, around like 13 or 14 when I started discovering like different kinds of music and like the different ways music was made. I know that definitely like that pushed me towards the idea of art and making music, was hearing the different things people could do with it. It didn't feel just like a hobby or a pastime. It felt like something people could make all sorts of things with.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. What about you, Mina?
That's a good question. I mean, when I was younger, I wasn't really always allowed to listen to music, but I mean, I got like little bits of it from one of my uncles. And like, it was a lot of like Led Zeppelin and like music that would be considered like, you know, satanic or something like that, right? But it's like, because there was such a like taboo with music, with the family that I lived with and like the culture that I came from, it only intrigued me a little bit. It intrigued me more to kind of delve into it. And I guess like for me at least, like music is more, it's less of like escapism and more of like a language in and of itself where you can convey emotions and feelings without, you know, having to just say like, oh, these are my thoughts, these are my feelings, right? Like you can convey it universally. And so, you know, that was kind of my interest with music, was like, you know, is it like how taboo it is.
That's a good way of putting it. Music is its own language.
Music is really like, it's its own language,
and
right?
It speaks to people differently,
right? Mm-hmm. I don't know if sorry, I got really distracted by this cat. And like,
no, it's great. It's great, honestly. Oh, so cute. Never had an animal on the show before. I'm actually wearing an Animal Liberation Front shirt. So.
Nice.
So this is great. So what kind of values or like beliefs are you trying to bring to the forefront with your music?
I guess I feel like it's that sort of like values. I feel like one of the main sort of values behind it is the like value of music and sound of itself, is like that sort of noise, is the value of noise and what it's worth in and of itself. Like there's no specific like political ideology or directive to what we do. It's more necessarily focused on the experience that you can yourself have with like music or art or what you make of it. And so that's always been like the core value and like belief behind it, is that like the less comfortable you are listening to something, the more comfortable you will be in finding something that you like. For example, like I first started getting like the idea for that like concept or that way of thinking from bands like Swans, like post rock, like Godspeed, sort of stuff like that, where it's very long form, very cacophonous, like 20-minute songs. And I feel like that sort of abstraction of sound was what like led me towards the idea of making that, but like more poignant in a way.
Mina, do you have anything that you want to add?
I mean, it's an expression, I think, right? Like when you're on stage and like I haven't been on stage yet because terrible stage fright, I have to say, but when I see you on stage, right, like there's just this absolute release of like, you know, things that you've experienced, and you bring it out for the both of us, I think, and Mac as well, right? Yeah. And like, it's like pure, like raw, natural emotion and feeling.
Yeah, it's sort of like separating yourself from your body and from sound, and more like the whole physicality of sound. And I guess it has somewhat to do with spirituality, because like I know I started becoming comfortable with performing and like letting everything out performing. Like I started becoming comfortable with that after I started practicing like transcendental meditation, which is really funny because I actually got that sort of like idea from different cults and stuff that I've researched. But it's a sort of like full body physical exhalation. Like from what I've seen, people do all sorts of stuff where they just throw themselves around and scream at the top of their lungs, and that's pretty much what I aim to do with like the performances that I do.
Ooh, very cool. This is going to intrigue people. Go to these shows; they're amazing. So you also have a very big visual aspect to your performances. Do you want to share a little about that?
Yeah, of course. Like I know like when I first started doing shows that it was very difficult for me to be comfortable like being in front of people, but it eventually got to a point where I sort of recognized that the music itself wasn't like the spectacle or the focus, more rather it was the performance. And that realization led me to sort of just cut myself off from the idea of it being a performance and just focusing on the full, like everything towards just the sound itself, like everything physical, mental, everything. And like, I remember when I was younger, like not even that long ago, I didn't even do anything for shows. I pretty much just like press buttons on my laptop. But ever since I started playing guitar like a year or two ago, I've gotten much more close and intimate with the idea of like playing live and performing. And I feel like that has become its own like separate but important aspect of like our music and what we do. Is even if it's just me, like we've tried, it's difficult to coordinate with 2-3 people to like perform because of our schedules, but that just like the visual element of the performance and like the art behind it along with the music, it basically serves to create its own world in a way, but not in like some overly explained, overcomplicated way. It's meant to just be like simplicity is one of the core like values of it.
Interesting. Yeah. I'm thinking of simplicity, and then I'm thinking, because you have this one album that you have like a warning on it that says like
Yeah.
where is it? It may not be suitable for those sensitive to unpleasant noises, explicit
Yeah.
and visual elements, but also like I found it interesting because it was like the warning was for like in the song,
Yeah.
but then also the visual elements, which I thought was cool.
Yeah. Because what we do, a lot of like the sort of like maximal energy of a lot of the music, that we try to carry that over to like the visuals, because like, we don't do music videos that often, but when we do, there's barely ever a frame that's more than like a 33rd of a second. It's like that full, like the full attention and visual audio experience of it is like one of the most important parts. So I feel like the trigger warning at the beginning of that album wasn't just for like the visuals, because I remember the first song starts with like direct audio from the protests in 2020 in like Portland, I'm pretty sure, and like there's audio of the police like firing baton rounds at people, and it's like you hear everything in that full setting, and that's where the sort of like world building, I guess, comes from, is that it's sort of meant to create its own space rather than to be like instead of like an album about all just songs that say, oh, fuck cops. It's more about the experience of what seeing these things, experiencing these things, and like what it does just in general to the mind and to people. Like, it's not meant to be overtly political as much as it is a result of like politics.
Yeah, I feel what you're saying. Mina, you look like you want to say something.
I'm just thinking about it a bit. Like, I agree with everything you're saying. Like, everything you're saying is just on point. Yeah, I mean, Anthony's pretty much said all the words for me, really.
Sorry.
No, you're all
No?
good. Like,
Well, maybe I'll hit you with a different question. Do you want to tell me the story of your first album?
It's an interesting story, actually. It really is. It really is. Because that was I don't remember when we released that. That would have been like New Year's 2021, like the end of 2020. So it was originally supposed to be on Halloween, but so the story of it is it's crazy. So it started off originally it was going to be just like 7 songs. There were going to be like some shorter, some longer, mostly like ambient. But at the time we were signed to a record label in Ontario, like in Toronto, and it ended up becoming this like whole nightmare of them taking us around the ringer. Like I remember at first they were talking, like they had pretty much coerced us into signing with them with the promise of like a record deal and promotion and like helping us get somewhere. But what it ended up turning into was they touted themselves as like a queer focused or positive record label, and we got like, me and Mac were mainly like the two who were talking to them. And I remember one of the first things we told them was like, there's just like 2-3 of us right now. Here's our information. Please don't really make it public. And I remember the first thing they did was they like made an article about how we were like this weird queer electronic duo. And it's like, we didn't tell you to tell everyone we're queer. And I'm like, the reason why that wasn't like acceptable is because of their treatment of us. Like they noticeably treated us differently because I'm AMAB. And that was like the biggest issue, is that they didn't even need to say anything. You could just tell. They never promoted us. They posted us like twice on anything, like 2 separate Instagram posts in like almost a year of being signed to them. It went from them saying they were going to give us a vinyl pressing to CD to cassette, and then to USBs, and then just digital. And it like got to the point where when we were supposed to release our album, like it was supposed to be released on like October 13th or 31st or something like that. And I told them, I was like, okay, we're all set for release. You have the masters here. This is all you need. And I remember they were like, oh, sorry, we're gonna have to push it back till December. And I remember they said December at the earliest. And I'm pretty sure on like the liner notes, it says that at the very bottom, because after they said that, like I talked to Matt, because we were living together at the time. And so I talked to him and I was just like, you know what, this isn't worth it. This like, because around the same time that they were doing like all of this and like pushing our album back, like this was getting into like November of like 2020, I think. Around the time that they had fully like screwed things up for us, I actually had a friend pass away, and that made it like, at that point, like we almost just called it quits. Like I remember I literally asked back, I asked him, I was like, would you hate me if I just decided this is the last time I touched music? And then we came to the decision that it wasn't worth letting them just beat us, especially because like we proved to ourselves that we were stronger than the bullshit that label could throw at us. So we decided to finish it with 13 tracks, a lot more detail and work into the mixing, and just like we released it on our own. And that's what we've been doing since, is just releasing stuff for free, just like on Bandcamp, YouTube, whatever, occasionally Spotify. But like that sort of self-sufficiency within us has sort of helped create like what we do now with like our new album. But Power for Power was originally called Power as an Object. But after everything that happened with the label, we decided to change it to Power for Power, because it was sort of like, to us, it was an exchange of positions, to like trying to go somewhere with music and then doing that ourselves instead of letting someone else pretend to do it.
Yeah. Cut out the middle guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, Minna, do you have anything to add to that? Sorry, I keep putting you on the spot.
Yeah. Sorry, I keep saying everything.
No, you're all good.
But like
yeah. I mean, remember the name change like happening and everything, and just like yeah, no, this is much better. Like,
yeah.
And like, you know,
it felt much more us to not, because like I remember they wanted it to be like shorter. They had this whole image they wanted us to like fit into, of like, oh, we're a queer band, but that's not everybody wants to be categorized. Like most people don't even know what any of us look like.
Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't ask before they just.
Yeah.
That's especially for people that claim like, no, I don't know.
I don't even want to say their name, like the name of the record label, because I still know a lot of people who are like signed to them or who like follow me or I'm mutuals with from that label. But at the same time, like the way they handled it, the only thing they did right was accepting the like essay I wrote about why I was terminating our contract.
Well, at least they did one thing right, hey? But yeah, don't give them any credit.
It did definitely help like move like it helped inspire a lot of things in the second album, right?
Yeah.
Like,
100%. That's sort of like giving ourselves the control that we were trying to like fight for with that first album was much better than like, I don't know. I feel like we were trying to fit into like the standard of music with like getting a physical release and publicity, but I feel like that doesn't always work. And what we've been doing since has worked pretty, like, if anything, better. It's worked much better than anything that like occurred while we were on that label. Because now we're more authentic than we could have ever been, because we went through the experience of someone trying to take that away from us, I guess. Like,
yeah, that makes sense. And then your second album, so There Are Dead Things Pretending to Be Living, was just DIY recorded.
Oh yeah, that's why like you could even talk about some of this. It's like some of personally from like all the music that I've ever done in the last like 5 years, that album is like I can comfortably finally say that I'm proud of that. just because of like the work Minna and Mac and the other people that I work with did. Like some of the songs you can't even tell, but like some of the songs were literally just like recorded in my living room in one take, and it was wonderful.
I mean, I remember doing vocals like in your living room
Yeah.
and like all in one take, all in one go, and then from there it was just, you know, on your computer
Yeah.
DIY.
It's just
and, like,
editing and then figuring out what fit where, how we wanted it to sound. It's pretty much just like a big process of, hey, does this sound good? Nope. Hey, does this sound good? Yup.
yeah, pretty much. And like, you
Yeah.
know, using the equipment that we had, like
Yeah.
equipment that we had acquired and like even borrowed equipment.
Yeah,
right?
literally, yeah. A lot of the time it's sort of like time and place is what factors a lot into it. Like one song I did, literally, I remember just like my friend Justin just decided to pick up the bass guitar, and I just happened to be recording. And we ended up recording one of my like more popular songs now, like The Door. We
Yeah.
just did that in my living room with like no effort. There's like one cut in the song where we messed up, and that's it. And I love it. I think what we do now is more authentic and close to, I don't know, whatever idea that this is than it had ever been.
And like as horrible as like the experience was with like the first album and dealing with like a label and everything,
All of
honestly, in
that.
a way, it's like I'm kind of grateful for it because it was that push that I think we needed.
It
to,
really was. It
like,
really was.
really find our authenticity and
Yeah.
just find a way to really express it with music, right? And like not have a sort of fear of like labels and publicity and like you know
Didn't
whole
want to sound a certain
the
way.
whole like bureaucracy of the music industry, right?
Yeah.
And so like we just get to actually have fun with it and do.
That's the focus now, is
Yeah.
pretty much just like doing whatever. I remember it used to be like, what would sound best? What would get the most airtime? It wasn't necessarily focused on the publicity about it, more rather it was focused on the I don't even know how to describe it. We were just focused on like making music and getting out there. But now it's more focused into something rather than just the vague idea of making music, which is very nice.
Yeah.
Very cool. And you have released, I think, like 2 singles in 2020?
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah, and a bunch more singles too on their Bandcamp if you want to look. And yeah, they are. Was there any different inspiration that you found kind of this year than before?
Oh, 100%. I know a lot of like what inspired the newest album is that with Power for Power, the main issue that I personally found with how it sounded was there was too much at points. We all came to the conclusion that like long songs can work, but they don't work for what we do. So the entire like the original basis for what we were doing was this sort of like long form music, and changing that. And that's the one thing that, the one thing that's like really been a consistent motivation now is pushing ourselves. Is like, I know with my I use a drum machine mostly because I found that that's a bit regressive. For example, you get all these nuances and you get all the creative output and talent of working with a drummer or someone else. But with a drum machine, you're forced to put yourself in that seat. You're forced to work with this rigid structure digitally of what you can do with your own mind and your own body. And that puts you like, I feel like that juxtaposition of giving yourself less to work with more, that has easily been like what has become of our art and our music. Like, especially with the visual element. Some of the music videos that I've been working on that are like going to come out this year are, you can tell it's more DIY than ever, but it's authentic and it's what it's supposed to be.
No, I think 2020, 2021 kind of let us go back to that a little bit, which I liked. Like I saw so many like regular shows on TV. Like I don't have cable, but going to visit my family safely, everyone safely. I noticed it was nice to see stuff like just filmed in people's living rooms and things like that. So even when we go back that way, filming things DIY, I think will be a lot more socially acceptable. And whether we care about that or not, I don't know, but at least we're there.
Yeah. I feel like it doesn't matter if people care or not. I feel like it's just more, however it sounds is the main aspect, like the main focus of it isn't making something that sounds good. It's making something that we think sounds good. And that's the funny part, is because a lot of the time it doesn't. And that's not entirely unintentional. Like,
You know, even the parts of your songs that were like uncomfortable or like you're like, whoa. I felt like it wasn't like it wasn't like horrendously off-putting, or like it was just like a moment where you had to like bring yourself into yourself.
Yeah.
And I found that to be really cool.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. So your oh no, you know what? I already asked you that question. Penguin Bowl. We can talk about Penguin Bowl for a second.
Oh, yeah.
There is a place in Calgary that is in need of signatures and donations.
Yeah.
And it's very, 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 very cool. And it is a DIY skate park that people can play shows at. And Calgary is trying to take it away from us.
Yeah. I honestly, like, I want to get it back. I think I only went there about 3 or 4 times total, but just that was enough to show me that there is a community in this city that I can not even necessarily fit into, but that I can feel safe and comfortable with. After like all that life has thrown at me and all the things that humans experience just day to day, it was nice to find that sort of space where like people are just doing whatever they want within reason, safely and in consideration of others. Like I remember the first time I went there, like it was Sheldon just invited me, and I remember I got there and there was a little kid just like standing on a dirt pile stabbing it with a stick, and like I forget who it was, but at one point someone threw a 6-pack of Red Bulls into the circle pit, and it was just the energy and the people there and the environment was so nice. Like even just like sitting there, not skating, not playing music, just having a little bonfire was a phenomenal experience. Like honestly, I hope that we get it back, because Penguin, it feels like one of those 1 in a million things in Calgary where it's a product entirely of us, and it's something that we have entirely done with like just people, just people with bags of cement mix, and it's great.
Yeah. Minna, did you get a chance to check it out?
I actually didn't, but I mean, from all the stories that I've heard, not just from Anthony, but just a bunch of people like going to Penguin and whatnot, like all the stories I've heard about it, it's just like incredibly inspiring, right? Just to see that we have this sort of DIY place for a community, like, and just seeing people kind of come together with something that they created, right? It's really inspiring, and like, you know,
Yeah.
like I don't want to see it. I don't
want to see it turn into like I don't want to see it turn into a park.
No, I want to go to it too. It's like I haven't gotten the chance to go down a Penguin. So
I think
like,
it's like,
you know,
yeah.
I want to experience that. I want to be a part of that kind of community, right?
Yeah, I think it's really funny, but also really like phenomenal that we as a city, we as just random people came together and were like, you know what? There was a car wash here. Let's turn this into a skate park.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
like just like the motivation behind it too. Like I know it says Rip Cole on like the one wall there. Like I remember hearing, I didn't even know his name until like I saw that at Penguin Bowl. But I remember it was a like short-lived band here in Calgary, Jail Pocket. They're really good, like phenomenal band. And I remember I forget who, like what he did, but I know that he like passed away. I don't know all the details, but I know that like he was their drummer, but I know that he was in that band and he passed away. And so seeing like that it was a memorial for him, that's amazing. Like seeing that people put the loss of a person into that like constructive output is very inspiring to me, because like having lost people, it's not always the easiest to be able to come out of it better off or with something to gain from it. And like, I don't know, it's just impressive. It's impressive at the very least that a bunch of people just decided they wanted to make a skate park, and they did. And it's pretty good.
Yeah. And if you are listening and feel like us and you're like, oh shit, I hate this, I'm going to put the petition in the links below, and I'm going to put the GoFundMe in the links below so that we can stop this and together. And
yeah.
hopefully...
Also another thing that I offered, I haven't had anybody take me up on it, but it still stands. If you donate to the Penguin Bowl fundraiser, I will literally, like, I have all sorts of just like merch or just random punk shit like these. I make these. I will literally just give these to people for free if they send money to that. Because like never in my life did I think, like, my sister came from Ontario, from I think she was in Toronto. My sister came from Ontario with her like 1 or 2 year old son, and they both came to the show with like her friend and her friend's kid, and they all loved it. And just the environment there, like, I having been around the city with them, like, Penguin was like the first place that they weren't made to feel like a Black family and out of place, you know? It felt like home, and that is what was important about it. Like, Penguin didn't, it wasn't for anybody in specific. It wasn't for the cool people or the skaters or anything. It was just, literally, it was just a place to hang out. I remember one time I went there and I had like my longboard and my like $200 like headphones that I used to mix our music. And I just left them like by the side, and I went to check and I was like, oh, they're not there. And someone was like, oh yeah, sorry, we just needed to move it to Mode Cement Mix. It's right here. And it was just there. It was dark out. There was hundreds of people, and no one even considered stealing my skateboard or my headphones. And it's just because that like environment, that community that Penguin has put together, it's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. I've left stuff everywhere there and I've always gotten it back. I feel
Yeah.
that. It's a beautiful place. And yeah, so everyone send your receipts to a Pact Between Strangers and
Yeah.
donate.
Literally
to
just like
Jingle
message
Ball.
me on Instagram.
Like, I donated. Because, or, if you can't donate, sign the petition.
Yeah,
And
that
if
also
you can't
works
sign
too.
the petition, contact Ramsey Community Hall. I think it's Ramsey.
Yeah.
But they're on board, so don't yell at them. Just tell them you're also
Yeah.
on board.
Yell at the city.
Yell at the city. Don't
There's
yell.
there's like a form. I think it's the petition. There's like a form you fill out. At the very bottom of it, you can write a note. Write that you disapprove of the gentrification of Calgary's one sacred DIY spot.
Yeah, let us keep it. We will put it up to community standards. Just let us keep it.
If you don't want to let us keep Penguin, turn the outlets on at Mills, because then we'll just play there.
Yeah, make up your mind.
Yep. One skate park is going to host shows in this city.
Yeah, for real. Like, oh, it's too bad, but it's expected. But hopefully we can fix it.
I feel like we'll get it back.
So I'm gonna fully shift gears. We're gonna try something new on this show today. I'm gonna play an impactful clip that a Pact Between Strangers finds impactful. It's almost a pun, but it's not.
Yeah.
And then we're going to discuss why this clip is impactful.
Mr. Bush, when are you going to apologize for the million Iraqis that are dead because you lied? You lied about weapons of mass destruction. You lied about connections to 9/11. You lied about Iraq being a threat. You sent me to Iraq. You sent me to Iraq in 2003. My friends are dead. Joshua Castile. You killed people. You lied. You lied about WMD. A million Iraqis are dead because you lied. My friends are dead because you lied. You need to apologize. Apologize.
Why was that clip impactful?
I feel like, for me at least, like, I know that it's less about it being like a conspiracy about 9/11 more rather than it is like someone who served in the US military, someone who like was overseas during the Bush administration, who literally full named people who have passed away as a result of George Bush's actions. Like, that with itself, like, it's not necessarily the political views or the conspiracy behind it, more rather as it is the result of politics that has created this situation that's worth learning from.
Mm-hmm.
It hit a little bit closer to home for me. So I myself am Iraqi. My parents are Iraqi immigrants. I was born in Canada, but I have been to Iraq, and like a lot of my family members and a lot of my family were directly affected by the US military intervening, right? And like like I'm trying to find a good way to put this. Their intervention in Iraq, in a sense, caused more harm than good. Don't get me wrong, I am grateful that Saddam Hussein is gone, but I mean, that was the only good thing that was done. Everything else was just kind of unnecessary. And then them staying, because, you know, they terminated a government, they kind of have to stick around to kind of see if a new government forms. every other government after that has just been completely corrupt, right? And like they go through prime ministers over there like Rolodexes, like they go through them just one after another. And just seeing how hurt, this military vet was by the things that they had done in Iraq, and the way he talks about, watching innocent lives, innocent civilians have to die, right? Just at the hands of all this turmoil, and unnecessary conflict to a degree, right?
Yeah.
The way that he expressed it, it just like, I remember seeing that video for the first time and just like I, without any control, just tears running down my face, right? Like, this is a man who has experienced something very similar to what my parents have experienced, and to a degree what I have experienced being in Iraq and whatnot. And so the way that kind of impacts us is like as musicians is we're trying to take back that level of power that so many people have had over us and so many politicians have had over us, and we're trying to take back that power and then put it into something constructive.
Yeah.
Music and art and visuals and just all of that, as a sort of way to express our anger and our frustrations and our emotions in general, right?
Yeah.
Without the use of any words, right? It becomes almost a universal expression, right? Anyone and like in the world can tune into a song, look at the album covers, look at a music video.
It's all very unanimous. Like
it's very unanimous. Like there's we're very limited when it comes to words, and it's more about the expression of the music itself.
Yeah. And
that's essentially us just trying to put the same feelings that we get from the man in the video yelling at George Bush, right?
Yeah.
Like
turning political power and control, taking the results of those systems and the outcomes of it and putting it into something rather than retaliation back against those actions, putting it into something that doesn't directly depict those actions.
Sort of message, if you will, right? Like
think of it like a painting made by all the conflicts of war and just the day-to-day struggles of what we consider to be like just the stuff we experience as humans, like all our different squabbles and trifles just as a species. If you think about it, they all amount to so much, but they all are significantly so human that it's all almost to an extent like there's no necessary conflict.
War is truly unnecessary to a degree, right? Like, and like in the ending of that little clip, right, where they start dragging the man out, like that, even just that like little, like the last few seconds of that clip have almost an even bigger impact because it just depicts his freedom of speech being completely restricted, right? This is a man who served in Iraq and he is trying to convey himself. He's trying to convey what he saw to
the person who sent him there. He's telling George Bush his friends' names, the names of his friends who are dead. And George Bush, instead of tolerating it, has him dragged out. And that goes to show how we treat the troops. And personally, like that also, like that clip is very important to me because I have a very like specific belief towards veterans and like soldiers and shit, because I feel like a lot of people when they say support the troops, they think like, oh, support the people in the army. I personally, when I say support the troops or support veterans, I mean support the abolishing of war and support the people who are victims of war, people who have served in those wars and who are now legless because of it, people who are living, walking results of those wars, who you just see, oh, thanks, here's a Camaro. Instead of that, how about you don't send them to war?
Like instead of sending people off and then having, them come back with PTSD and missing limbs and, all of these other things, just giving them like
the
a
actions,
sum of money a month, right?
Yeah, like the actions people are forced to take out as soldiers, and the people who are on both ends, the people who experience those things and the people who do those things, it's both if ask either of them, for example, like people who were victims of war, people who served in those wars. Like an example that I think about often is when I was younger, I was in Los Angeles with my mom, and we were driving to the airport, and I think it was like her aunt's friend. He was driving us, and he told us about how when he served, like he I forget where he was, but like he was on active duty, and his head officer told him to shoot a child, and it took everything out of him. Like he told me, like, this was like a grown man, like in his 70s. He was just talking about it, like he just brought it up, and like he said it took everything out of him to try to defy that order, but his CO or whatever literally like made him shoot a child.
What? That's
And
wild.
those actions that people take, and the people that those actions are taken against, that has so much more of a bearing than just, oh, war is bad, oh, you shouldn't agree with this government or this political idea. It's so much more simple than one or two in sides. It's more simple than sides. It's just control and power. They're the same word, they're the same thing.
Yeah. I would even argue there's no different sides. One is apologetic and one is less apologetic.
Yeah, pretty much.
But you end up with the same result, unfortunately, either way. So, but it is cool that you've taken like such anger about it, because I also feel that I'm mad about it pretty much every day of my life. So it makes me do this kind of stuff. But yeah, if you don't channel your anger in like a healthy way, I feel like sometimes if I don't end up doing like a podcast or like an educational or just like something, or just like even going somewhere and yelling, you know,
It just builds up.
It builds
Could
up.
you imagine like, instead of us making this art and this music, imagine if we just went and like destroyed bus shelters, just like broke glass and spray painted stuff. Like,
it doesn't do anything for anyone, right? Like there's nothing anyone can really benefit from it, right? Whereas like this is almost like a universal benefit, right?
Yeah, like personally, I feel like growing up, a lot of what I experienced with music was like, music helped me with mental illness and all sorts of shit. And so a huge portion of what we do has to do with like, it's all for your own personal benefit. It's not music to make you think you're cool or music to make you feel like, oh, I want to fucking stab a cop. It's music to help you. If anything, it's music to teach you how to like let yourself heal from the things you've experienced. Because I know for me, that's a big portion of it, is like my friend who passed away, I think it was like a year or two ago. She was like the person that I started with. She was the person who talked me into music, and I wouldn't be anywhere with it if it wasn't for her. So like the music that we make, I know I didn't start playing guitar that long ago, but I know that it became so much, it spoke to me more than like keyboard or piano, because those you get the range of all the notes and scales and whatever, but with the guitar you get the tactility of it, and nothing would properly convey the stuff that we like discuss rather than me playing guitar until my fingers bleed. Like I feel like it fits together in its own way that is in and of itself singular. Like there's no other way we could do this kind of music or this kind of art and make it as authentic and its own.
Yeah, that's really deep. I like it. Very cool. One more question before we finish, and actually I'm going to ask both of you separately. What is your final statement for the people? Minna, if you want to go first.
Yeah.
Putting you on the spot. You're like, I was not warned.
No, it's all good. It's like, this is like, I'm just thinking about it because it's like, it could be anything, right? It could be something super powerful. Or maybe this is my final statement, just me talking about how powerful a final statement could be.
I like
No,
it.
I think my powerful statement is, do art, do whatever you want, right? Don't hurt anybody, obviously, but, be yourself, be authentic, and, be unapologetically you and have fun, right? Like, life isn't some serious sort of battle that, where every single day, you feel like you have to fight, right? And like, sometimes it does feel like that, but, try to remember to have a good time and just enjoy those like little moments, I guess. Also, smoke weed. Weed is great. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I love that your cat made a little addition to that too.
Yeah.
She's the final statement. She's my actual final statement.
Anthony, what is your final statement?
I don't know. I feel like I was trying to think of how to word it, but my final statement would probably be that the less you try to control who you are, the more you can be yourself.
Ooh, I like that. I'm going to take that and put that in my pocket and keep that for later. Thank you. And so, where can people find you? Facebook, Instagram, both a Pact Between Strangers. Bandcamp is the door is closed.
Yep, the door is closed.bandcamp.com. Bandcamp's the most reliable place because we do all our stuff for free on Bandcamp. And you can download it as high quality stuff. Also, a lot of the releases and stuff we do on Bandcamp come with like a shit ton of bonus items digitally. Like I know Power for Power, I'm pretty sure it had like an entire other song just like in the like liner notes. And then I know there are Dead Things Pretending to Be Living. I know that's got like, I'm pretty sure that's got some of like the other art and stuff that we made for it. And pretty sure it has like the full liner notes that like list all the like equipment and stuff we use.
Cool.
Like one day I want to write it out. Like sometimes our songwriting process is a bit excessive, so some of our songs are they're more like a Mozart piece on paper than they are like a shitty 2-minute techno song.
I actually like that you guys have like all the different instruments and things that you, and some of them are they instruments, but you make them instruments.
Oh, barely.
And I love it. But yeah, so much cool stuff to check out on Bandcamp. And yeah, please check out the music videos and follow on Facebook and Instagram and sign the Penguin petition below. And if you donate, send your proof of donation, please.
Yeah, you will get free stuff. At the very least, if you don't want like a patch or a bracelet or something, I'll give you like a sticker.
Yay, free stickers. Cool. Thank you so much for your time. I super appreciate it. This was a great talk.
Of course.
And
it was very nice.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Anytime. Cut.